G'day everyone and welcome to the very first episode of the Brett Lee podcast. We are on debut talking about all the cricket throughout the summer. It's the Ashes, it's the big one. Australia versus England starts on December the 8th. We'll be catching up with some famous friends from around the world, experts in their field, and maybe a few media personalities or two. Of course, you can contact us anytime at the podcast. It's the Brett Lee podcast at news.com.au or through our WhatsApp group, and the link to that is in the episode notes. If you're feeling generous, give us a tap right now if you're listening on your phone. My 2IC, my co-host here is Brad Edward McNamara, commonly known as the Buzzard, former New South Wales all-rounder and current executive producer at Fox Sports. Buzzard, welcome.
Hey Bingo, great to be here. Really looking forward to this. It's going to be so much fun.
What is this podcast in your opinion? What's it all about?
Well, we're going to hit some serious cricket issues, but I think the majority thing we want to do is make sure we have some fun. You know, we're not two corpses in black T-shirts trying to recite poetry or be too clever. I think between us we've got the cricket angle covered, but I think people want to have a bit of fun out there, so let's give it to them.
Absolutely, and we've got some pretty amazing guests lined up, which we'll get to later on throughout the episodes.
Awesome,
and we've got one today as well. We've got a cracker today.
Another Edward.
Yes, another Edward middle name. So get to that in a second, tell you exactly who it is. But I guess talking news the last couple of days, it's been a couple of big weeks for Australian cricket. We saw Tim Payne stand down for those lewd messages and photographs, I guess, with what's happened 4 years ago. Positive side of things, though, we think about who's behind the stumps now. Alex Carey, yesterday named as the keeper to take over from Tim Payne. Is he the right call?
I think he is, yeah. And how excited would Alex Carey be? Imagine making your test debut, which you can imagine, yours versus India at the MCG. I was lucky enough to be there. How good was that? How long ago is that?
99, long time.
Jeez, it doesn't feel that long ago.
It does for me.
But let alone make your test debut, but then in an Ashes series. And it seems like the wait's been long for this. You know, there was a lot of talk it wouldn't happen, and you know, in this COVID-ravaged sporting landscape, whether England would come, whether they'd bring their best team. Well, they have arrived. They do have their best side. And as you mentioned, the Tim Payne issue, there's been so much to talk about, but you know, the game itself is only around the corner. I think Alex Carey brings a great dynamic to the team. He's a great character. He's already a leader amongst the side. He's already played for Australia a lot,
which is helpful.
Yeah, but his main job is to keep. So if there are any question marks over Alex, it would be in his keeping. And having a chat to Brad Haddin yesterday, a colleague of ours, obviously a great keeper for Australia. The one thing he raised was maybe his ability up to the stumps to the spinners, so and flag that as an area that Alex may have to work on, keeping the Nathan line, especially late in test matches when it starts to spin and keep low and the pitch plays up. I think his batting will be fine. Yeah, he's coming off some good form. He just scored 100.
Got 100, yeah.
A week or two ago.
Look,
last week.
It was in white ball cricket, but it still counts.
But runs are runs, mate. It doesn't really. I mean, you can face as many balls as you want in the nets, but there's no substitute for getting out in the middle and scoring runs. Doesn't really matter who it's against. And when you look, not many others have been playing cricket. Certainly, England haven't played much cricket. I noticed they got a day in yesterday, and Ben Stokes took a couple of wickets, which is good for them because the weather's been awful up on the Gold Coast. So a lot of the Australian guys won't have played much as well. So going in with any sort of form at all is going to be a bonus.
Well, maybe it's the perfect preparation for the Poms, you know, give them some bad weather. I mean, they'd be used to that back home, wouldn't they? Rubbish weather back in England.
Yeah, surely, yeah. I remember playing in England. We went off for rain mid-April and got back on in August one year.
Doesn't surprise me. You think about Alex Carey too. I mean, the gloveman he's followed from the great Rod Marsh to Ian Healy to Adam Gilchrist. And I reckon Cricket Australia made a monumental mistake back in the late 90s by hiring Adam Gilchrist because he changed the game, didn't he? I mean, what a superstar. Showed everyone how to bat, averaged, over 50, was brilliant behind the stumps. So someone like an Alex Carey has got these guys to look up to. Brad Haddin and obviously Tim Payne recently. Yeah,
before Gilly, it was you picked your best keeper, and if they could bat, it was a great bonus. But as you said, Gilly changed the game. Really, he was, and I don't want to take away from his keeping ability. He was still the best keeper going around at the time, but his batting was just next level. I mean, and he has set the bar pretty high for those that follow. Hads did a fantastic job. Tim Payne, the jury's out over how well he did, but given the circumstances and how he took over, you'd have to say he did a fairly good job. But I think it's a good time to blood a new keeper. I think Alex Carey would have been the guy I selected, and I think it's a good call.
Yeah, he's sort of beat a couple of guys. Josh Inglis was being thrown around as the next keeper. Philippi also, 24 years of age, is a player of the future in terms of Australian cricket, Test matches that is. But yeah, I think they made the right call. Alex Carey, 30 years of age, he's got a good career ahead of him, got the experience, blooding a new captain, blooding a new keeper. You want guys that aren't going to be sort of intimidated on that level. So,
and what a story! I mean, he started as the original captain for the GWS Giants in the AFL, and Kevin Sheedy cut him and said, "Mate, give cricket a go."
Is that right?
Yeah, he was a highly skilled AFL player. Kev gave him the boot, said, "Give cricket a go." Oh, he's given it a go, and he's done pretty well.
He was about to get his baggy green cap, which is a very, very special moment. I wonder who will present it to him as well. So we'll find out in a few days.
Do you want to? I'll get a little inkling. Adam Gilchrist might be lurking on the Grand Prix match. What better man? Well, let's toss it up. So AB will be around.
AB, I reckon.
Mr. Cricket will be lurking up there. So who'd you get your cap off?
I reckon Gilly would be the right choice. I actually got mine off a gentleman called Ian Metcalfe.
Yes.
Now, Ian Metcalfe, who played for Australia, actually got called for throwing. And after my second game, my action was questioned. So thanks, Ian.
So after you got your cap, when did you first take it off? Did you sleep in it that night?
No, well, I was told. So I got a photo Christmas Eve that went in all the papers. Get down to the ground. And as we're walking down to find out who's in the team, it was either me or Michael Kasprowicz, and I'm last to walk down and Warnie's behind me, or I'm second last and Warnie's behind me, and he goes, "Hey, Binger, just found out you're playing, right? So congratulations, but when Tugger tells you, just act surprised." So as I was walking down the field, I knew I was going to get picked, and I'm smiling from ear to ear. I reckon Tugger sussed it out that Warnie was behind me and wrecked the whole thing, but no, that was a very special moment. So Alex Carey, yeah, in the Ashes, what bigger moment? 2021, the Poms are out. It's going to be a huge summer, so looking forward to that. So, yeah, congratulations to Alex Carey. But I guess the next big question, Buzz, is who bats number 5? For me, there's two obvious, candidates that will sort of put their hand up. Travis Head and, of course, Usman Khawaja. I'm leaning towards Khawaja because of that experience. Because he's the type of guy that doesn't get flustered, I think, in those big moments. Travis Head's obviously a quality player, nothing against him, but I want to put my money on Usman Khawaja.
We don't want to be a show where we agree on everything, but I'm going to agree with you on this one, Binger. I think if you ask the England side, who would you least like to bowl to?
Yeah.
I reckon it would be Usman Khawaja. Usman had a very good series last Ashes out here. Quite a heavy run-scoring series for him. Look, I've always thought Usman's in our best top 6 batsmen in the country at any given stage. He's sort of fallen in and out a bit of form. I think he's had some rough selections go against him over the years, and that every player cops that to a certain extent. And there's no doubt his record in Australia has probably been vastly superior to his record overseas. But that's a pretty long list of people who share that. Most people do tend to play better at home than they do away. But I'd definitely have Usman in my top 6.
Yep.
Whether he should be batting at 5 or not, I mean, I wonder if they ever thought about maybe opening with him and putting Travis Head at 5. I suppose they made that call when they went with Marcus Harris that they wouldn't do that.
It's not a bad shout, actually, because when you think about what he can do, he can face the new ball. He can score quickly enough, but he's also got a great technique that he could keep out that brand new ball. And, I mean, he's up against Stuart Broad and Jimmy Anderson, over 1,100 test wickets between them. They will make the ball talk. Even though it's not a Duke ball, it's a Kookaburra ball. Probably won't shape as much. But, yeah, he could definitely open.
Yeah. And I reckon a lot's been made of, he could definitely open, a lot been made of the left-hand, right-hand combination. So we're very heavily stacked with left-handers, which Broad loves, as we know, bowling.
So does Jimmy.
Left-handers, so does Jimmy Anderson. So that's going to be, if the wickets do have a bit in them, might prove a little bit of an issue for Australia over the series. But Travis Head was left-handed anyway, so that probably it didn't matter all that much. But I think they'll go with Usman. I think they should go with Usman. Travis Head's had a pretty good start to the season as well, but I just think he's wasted quite a few opportunities the last few years to really cement his spot. I'm sure if you ask Travis, he'd say he's been a little bit disappointed at times of what he's done the last few years. Shown some great glimpses. But I just think maybe that little technical deficiency outside off stump has cost him a little bit, and it's a pretty good England attack they'll be coming up against. I don't think we've got too much to worry about in terms of their spinners, but the fast bowling attack, Anderson, Broad, Ollie Robinson, Chris Wokes, that'll test our top order batting.
Yeah, definitely. And, you think about, as I mentioned before, those two bowlers, Broad and Anderson, arguably the best in the world, the most wickets. So speaking about the Poms then, if we're on that topic, you think about England and, you look back to England playing on Australian home soil. Their last 10 years, they have not won a series.
They haven't won a test for 10 years.
No.
It sounds a bit like my love life. That's tragic. 10 years.
10, I reckon you're being generous.
Me or them?
Why? In your opinion, why haven't they been successful on Australian soil?
Well, the last time they won a series, as you rightly say, they won 3-1 in 10-11. And done a little bit of research on this, which I know is very unlike me, and you'll be highly surprised. Usually cricket games are won or lost in a battle of the new ball, so crucial. So in 10-11, Cook and Strauss had a storming. I think they averaged nearly 80 for their opening partnership. Since then, they've really struggled in that regard. So Australian attack has been able to take early wickets. If you lose the battle of the new ball, it's very hard to win any cricket game. You're coming off the back foot. So Cook and Strauss in 10-11 versus, I think, Mark Stoneman and Cook last time they were out here in 17-18 averaged something like 19 for their opening partnerships. So you've got to be strong in the top order batting. I think in 10-11, between them, they scored 9 centuries. Last time they came out, they only scored 3.
Right.
So you've got to be able to, number 3 is crucial. Jonathan Trott had a barnstorming series in 10-11.
They couldn't get him out.
Even
though he's South African.
Last time England came, and I won't go into the middle one, but James Vince only averaged 22 and only scored 2 50s, I think. So the top order batting is, it's a bit captain obvious, but it's crucial. So the England top order is going to have to hold its own. They're probably going to have to average 300 runs in innings if to give that good England attack something to bowl at. One of the things that's interesting is how vital the keeper is in touring teams. So in 10-11, Matt Pryor had a really good series. Mm-hmm. Nearly 300 runs, averaged 50, scored 100, couple of 50s.
Yep.
Last time, Bairstow, and I think, I can't remember who the other keeper was, but I think actually Pryor and Bairstow was, sorry. They had a shocker. I think Bairstow replaced Pryor, who went home early. There was very little output. Now, the keeper's so important for your batting lineup for 2 reasons. You can resurrect the innings if you lose quick wickets, but also they have to face the second new ball a lot. So the keeper needs to keep well and take catches and all that sort of thing. So that's a vital cog. Rishabh Pant last year averaged 70 for India.
And he was phenomenal and gave it to the Aussies.
Rescued the innings a few times and then took it to us. So that's a vital area. And, of course, as we know, their attack. So I think one of the keys and what India did really well last year and England did really well in 10-11, they kept the run rate. They kept Australia's batting quiet. The run rate, they only went at 2.5 and over. Now, Anderson's been the leading bowler from England in the last decade out here.
Yeah, in Australia,
In Australia. He's getting his wickets in the mid-20s. In 10-11, he had support from Bresnan, Tremlett and Steve Finn. They were going in a similar sort of combined output to Anderson. So it kept Australia quiet. They also had Graham Swann. Now, Graham Swann took 15 wickets in 10-11, which isn't a lot, but he took them at a tick under 30, but he bowled over 1,000 dot balls. So he kept the Australian batting quiet, and that's the key. You got to keep them quiet. We like to score quick. You got guys like Warner, Smith. India showed the template last year, so it's going to be vital that they take early wickets, obviously, but they've got to keep Australia quiet. So the spinners have a big job, Dom Bess and Jack Leach.
Yep.
So when they do come on, they can't leak runs. Moeen Ali, last series, took 5 wickets at 115 and went for nearly 4 and over. So it's not enough. So there's the things. Top order batting, the keeper has to do well. We've got to take early wickets. But probably the most crucial thing is they've got to keep the Australian batting order quiet when they're not taking wickets.
Yeah.
Which is what India did last year.
And I think what you touched on there, that Jack Leach, I think he's almost, the linchpin of England. Yeah. He's got to be the guy that takes wickets, a bit like what Nathan Lyon's done the last few series. So looking forward to seeing...
there's nothing worse yourself. When you've been... Imagine when you're playing Test cricket and the quicks have done their job and they've done their job, and your spinner comes on and
gets tapped.
starts getting tapped, and it gets away from you. The spinner's got, even if he's not taking a lot of wickets, like Graham Swann in 10-11, didn't take a lot of wickets, but he just held up an end.
Yeah, we'd Warney the whole time.
Yeah. So even if you're not taking a lot of wickets, it's putting pressure on the batsman, and as you know, pressure equals wickets. The more dot balls and the more pressure that builds, especially these days, the modern player likes to they like to belt the ball, they like to feel the bat on the ball, they like to get away from the bowling.
Well, I reckon they've got a good side, and I reckon it's going to be a lot closer than what people think. Everyone's saying Australian whitewash, but I don't necessarily agree with that.
What's the key for you?
The key for me is early wickets against the Australian top order. If they can get those inroads and make them really, really quickly in terms of having 3 down the first session, that's really going to set the tone for the English bowlers. I said Leach has got to be the guy that can step up the plate, not only contain or hold one end, but take wickets. You know, he's got to take wickets. He's got to get guys like Warner out, the big wicket, Stephen Smith, Kawaji if he plays. Those are the key wickets that Jack Leach has got to get. But when you think about someone like the inclusion of Ben Stokes, you know, back in, good old Kiwi Ben, it's almost like Australia versus the rest of the world. You know, how many true Poms are in this 15 lineup? We'll wait and see confirmation on that. But look, it's going to be a great series. I'm looking forward to it. I guess the other talking point in the press recently, and very, very fresh, is who will be the third seamer for Australia. We know Pat Cummins, captain, picks himself. Josh Hazlewood, outstanding, coming off an incredible IPL, T20 World Cup. His red ball cricket's been phenomenal. And Mitchell Starc. Now, I'm going to go with Mitchell Starc because I love what he can bring to the team. 150 Ks, swing the ball back in, take wickets, bowls well to left-handers, can swing the ball reverse when it starts to go. I understand if he's not bowling 150 Ks, well, then we've got some problems, because the difference between 150 Ks or 138 Ks for someone like a Mitchell Starc, that's the difference between getting a bag full and getting tapped.
Well, explain to people.
I'm going to back him though, Buzz.
Yeah. Explain to people though, what is the difference between facing 150 and 138 in terms of how much longer do you have to?
Well, you've normally got anywhere between 0.3 and 0.4 of a second. So for me as a tail-end batsman,
so that's like
less
probably
than
4 or
half a
5
second.
metres less time you've got to play the ball.
Yep. And the ball comes on super quick. So when you go from 130 to 140, it's a change. But every time you go up a kilometre over that 140 mark, it's completely different. You could actually, it's noticeable. Then when you get 150 to 155 is just, it's almost like, you've lost a 100-metre sprint by 10 metres. That's what it's like. You've been absolutely caned. Even though it might be 0.1 of a second, you've been absolutely nailed. So the fast bowlers, the reason why he has been successful is because he's tall, he gets that trajectory off the wicket, he shapes the ball back in at 150 Ks. The reason why a lot of bowlers go from 150 down to 138 can be a number of factors. It can be injury, carrying a niggle in the ankle or the knee or the lower back. It could be form, not backing yourself,
what
not
about
hitting the crease.
How much is your confidence?
Confidence is
bowl
everything.
Fast?
And look, I've had 6 ankle operations, and to try to land on my left foot, most bowlers when they land at 2 times their body weight.
Because he's had a few ops on his ankle.
He's had his knees had a few issues. When I would land and I'd slap my foot down, it was 15 to 16 times my body weight. So there's a lot of pressure going through your ankle. And when you're coming off that ankle surgery again and again and again, I had to trick my brain to say, all right, I'm coming off a fifer. Because you just got to back yourself and trust yourself. But when it hurts, it kills and it's hard to bowl fast.
So I guess it comes down to what role they want him to play in the side. If he's not able to bowl fast and swing it and be attacking. Now, I think people have to temper their expectations. It's hard to expect someone to do that and go at 2 runs and over.
Yep.
So I think people, if you want Mitchell Starc doing that, you've got to accept he's going to go for a few runs. And if that's your role in the side, to blast the tail out, to get early wickets, to run in and rip in for 3 or 4 or 5 overs and not be too worried about the run rate, then I think we pick him. And if as long as he's fit enough and he's able to do that. But if they don't want that sort of bowler in their side, then they probably go the other way.
I think there's 2 things here with Mitchell Starc. A bit like what Steve Waugh used to tell me, exactly what you just said then. Don't worry how many runs you go for. If you go for 30 runs off your 4 overs to get us 1 wicket, you've done the job. Yeah. And you've got that key wicket that we're trying to get that breakthrough. There might be, over 100 runs.
I guess that's a risk reward, isn't it? Because if you do give someone that role and it goes wrong, it gives the other side such a head start or such a leg up. It tends to set the tone for the innings. And I think Mitchell's been criticised a fair bit for that. When it doesn't go to plan at the beginning and he does go for a few, it can look quite awful. But, we've seen what happens when it does go right. And once again, we can put it back. If you're England, who would you rather face?
Well, I wouldn't want to face Mitchell Starc if he's on song.
Well, at 130 k's an hour, 35 k's an hour, they probably want to face Mitchell Starc. But at 150, if he's on song and you got it right.
No, thanks.
No. Well, with Jai Richardson's a bit more, you'd sort of know what we're going to get.
He's a bit more skiddy, and he's a very good bowler. He shapes the ball away to the right handers. Yeah. He will be successful at Test cricket.
Sure.
If I'm captain, if I'm Pat Cummins, I'm going to say, right, you got 2 tests. I don't care how many runs you go for. I want you to take wickets, run in and bowl flat out. Knock the pegs over, rip off the front boot. You do that, you're in the team every single time.
And I agree, mate. I'd love to see him come out with that attitude. Just pin the ears back and go for it.
Hopefully you can. Hopefully you can get a bag full. And I'm backing the attack.
It's easier said than done, though, isn't it?
Hazelwood and Cummins. It is, but that's the reason why you play. That's why it's called Test cricket. Test your character and your courage and that endurance and that stamina. So it's guest time. And Buzzer, this is always the best part. I know that we are on debut, and we thought we'd get the best first up. Mark Edward Waugh. Let's have a look at a few of these stats. Well, he's born 2nd of June 1965, which makes him 56 years young. Born at Panani in Bankstown. Buzz, you'd know that.
Yeah, I wasn't far away up the road in Greenacre.
3 brothers, 1 of 4. Steve Waugh, who we know, of course, junior. Dean Waugh played first-class cricket, and Denny Waugh was a very, very good cricketer too. Made his Test debut at the age of 25, 1991, versus England in the Ashes, and the last Test of 2002. But the first Test was on debut, and this is what happened.
That's it. He smashed it to the boundary. That's Mark Waugh's 100. 100 on debut. What a magnificent innings it's been. It's his 26th first-class 100.
So 128 matches for Australia, over 8,000 runs, great average of well over 40. Mark Waugh, welcome. Junior, how are you?
G'day, boys. Privileged to be on the show and making the debut there. Must be very high up on the list. Thank you very much.
Are you at home at the moment?
I am at home, yeah.
Hey, you weren't that high up, June. You're the only one we could get.
That's what I thought, yeah. That's what I thought.
Hey, mate, no, Dory, us Edwards has got to stick together. Good middle name, Edward.
The check's in the mail. That's good.
What's been happening? Obviously, a massive summer coming up, firstly with the cricket.
Yeah, big summer coming up. Obviously, we've been in lockdown for a little while, so it's great to be out and about. And, the Ashes summer, it doesn't get any bigger than that, probably apart from India. They're the 2 big series to either play in or watch or commentate on, so can't wait for it. And the Big Bash, of course, starts this weekend. So, it's exciting times.
Junior kid, what do you remember of your debut?
Well, I remember obviously getting picked in the first place where Stephen, who unfortunately got dropped and I took his place, he was the one that told me I was in the team. So that was the first thing I remember. Then it was on the Australia Day long weekend in Adelaide. So I remember having a photo shoot the day before in an Australian flag draped around my shoulder. So that was a bit corny, but it was, against England. So once again, a big series and playing in Adelaide, which is one of my favourite grounds. First up, good batting pitch, obviously. And then just, managing to peel off 100 and survive not being run out by Greg Matthews for 3 hours. That was the toughest thing to do.
That's always a good achievement. Mate, when you actually, the story goes that Stephen announced to the family that he'd been dropped and Rog, your father, who was, can be a bit of a feisty character at times. Good old Rog, love him, great man.
Great man.
Blew up and said, "Oh, you're kidding, who replaced you?" And he said, "A bloke sitting at the end of the table." Is that true?
Yeah, something along those lines, yeah. So, that's the way it all panned out with the fact that I was in and Stephen was out. So at least one more was in the team. It could have been none. Stephen could have been dropped and someone else could have took his spot.
Hey, I obviously know having 2 brothers, one older that you know very well, Shane, and a younger brother, Grant, both are very good cricketers, but having 3 brothers in the backyard, what was the sort of setup in the backyard? Was there a certain angle or a style of the pitch or, because you're very, very good off your legs and most times when you play backyard cricket, it's because of a certain angle of the driveway or, a gap in the field?
Yeah, well, we used to play down the driveway and obviously Dean and Danny didn't do a lot of batting and bowling. They just did a fair bit of fielding and fetching the pill when it used to go over the fence. But, we had a driveway with a bit of a slope on it and quite short boundaries on one side where the fence was and the other side which was actually the offside, had a bit more room. But and then, we used to just play all day. And then we did have a reserve pitch out the front yard, which had a bit of a slope on it as well.
Lords.
We had 2 venues, which was always great. But no, I mean, as soon as we got home from school, we're just in the backyard playing all sorts of sports, whether it be cricket, soccer, tennis, golf. And, that's just where it developed. Mum and Dad were good tennis players. My uncle was a very good cricketer, Dion Bourne, captain Bankstown at first grade.
Yep.
But it all started in the backyard, as you say, Binger. And I was probably better off my pads and Stephen maybe through the offside. So for whatever reason, that's just the way it sort of developed.
I want to ask you, because I've had this throughout my whole life too, June, but was there any jealousy or animosity between, you and Steve? Was it, growing up, achieving things at different times?
No, not really, because we basically did the same things and we were probably at the same level, everything we did, whether it be at schoolwork. We got in the same teams. We generally performed the same. We usually got the same amount of runs and wickets. The only thing we had to keep an eye on when we played for Bankstown was our scorer, Arthur Cooper. It was about 130 in the shade. He used to get us mixed up.
Did he?
So if we were batting together, say, for example, I thought I got 30, I'd come in and Arthur had given me 12 and Stephen was 50 when he should have been, So we had
Tug would be loving that too, wouldn't he?
Yeah, so we had to count our own scores, even at club level. But, no, look, there wasn't any jealousy at all because we were both doing what we loved and we both were achieving pretty good results. It probably looked like it later in our career when we had about a dozen run-outs there when we were batting together. I was certainly on the rough end of the stick one season. I reckon I got run out about 5 times with Stephen. I only got him back about twice. So
in the 90s,
a few, wasn't he?
Yeah, but I tell you what, he wasn't happy. He was when I was running for Craig McDermott in his test match in Perth. Stephen was on, heading towards the 90s, and I was running for Craig McDermott, who I don't know, he must have broken a toenail or something. He couldn't run, so I had to run for him. And he was the last man in, obviously, number 11, and. Unfortunately, I was trying to get Stephen to his 100. He knocked the ball down to his feet off Chris Lewis at the whack, and I thought it was a single to bring up his 100. So I got all the way down there, and Stephen said no, and I've run all the way back and got run out by about this far. Graham Gooch ran me out, and Stephen was stranded on 99. So
he wasn't best.
Well, he should have ran. He should have run. He would have got his 100.
That's right.
Push on, yeah.
So, June, you made your debut 85-86, I think in the same game with Mark Tubby Taylor, a great mate of ours. You opened the batting, but it took a while to get into Test cricket. Something like 26 first-class centuries before you actually got that to that Test debut we played before. Was that a difficult period, or especially having seen Stephen kick on and he got selected early, probably a little bit before he was ready?
Yeah. Well, I suppose in one way I thought, well, if Stephen can get selected and play for Australia, I know I'm as good as Stephen. Well, I thought I was anyway. Then I could achieve the same thing. So, when I first played for New South Wales, I actually got dropped not long after because I wasn't going that well. And then I came back batting at 6 and opening the bowling. I opened the bowling with Mike Whitten at the Gabba when I returned to Sheffield Shield cricket, in my first season.
You were nasty quick, Junior. You love bowling the bouncer.
Love the boardroom, June.
How many bouncers?
The flowing great lid.
Not as nasty as you two, but I took a little while to get into stride, and then I had a couple of really good seasons. Len Pascoe was actually coach for New South Wales when I had my best season. I really
how'd you manage that?
Not that he gave me much batting advice, Len Pascoe, but I was getting a lot of 20s and 30s early in my career, and then I just started to peel off hundreds. And then I went to England. I was lucky enough to get a game with Essex. I took Alan Border's spot as the overseas player at Essex, and I peeled off, I think, 3,000 first-class runs in a calendar year, and that's when I got my chance to be picked for Australia. So I had to wait a bit longer, but I guess when I did get picked, I was ready to go.
Well, Junior, just look at these stats here. So you've got combined Test and ODIs, 3,800s for Australia, which is phenomenal. You've done work post-cricket. You've done some work with Channel 9 as a commentator for a short little period. Channel 10, obviously, with a big bash when that was going through that period. And now, obviously, with Fox Sports, which is a lot of fun. As a commentator, sometimes it can be quite difficult because there's a list of different names, and cricketers can have some funny surnames. We think of Onions, we think of Root, we think of Cummins, we think of Hardick, we think of De Kock, and we think of this.
So I think John Holland is just bowling a little bit too slowly. We saw Fakhr Zazam, what's his name? Zaman.
Close but no cigar, Junior. You've had a
it's a
few
hard
dramas.
one.
It's a hard one. Fuck as a man, to try and say that with a straight face. Tough one, June.
Live TV,
Yeah.
it can be a bit dangerous, perilous with a few of these surnames going around. You've managed to rack up a fair set of accidental expletives, though.
Well, am I the only one that does that? Am I? Is there no other commentators? Or just me, is it?
Well, we're talking to you at the moment. We're not talking to everyone else.
Well, fuck us, man. That was a tough one. I mean, I actually got his first name right, but
Yeah.
I got his surname wrong because I was concentrating so much on the first name. And I got no help from Binger, who was on the panel with me in Nerily Meadows. So, yeah, look, at least I'm quite consistent. I normally peel off a bit of a faux pas every season. So
They say perception is reality, but with you, it wasn't reality. There was a perception going that you were lazy and you didn't care if you got out and all that sort of thing. And I was lucky enough to play a lot of cricket with you, and I know that wasn't the case.
Yeah,
I mean, you
absolutely.
worked just as hard as anyone else did, and it mattered just as much to you as anyone else. Did that annoy you, that perception?
well, it did a little bit. I mean, you sort of get tagged with a way of playing early in your career. Some say, lazy, casual and lazy, and sort of easy to the eye. Sort of mix up, the edges sort of mix up. So, I mean, I was naturally quite an elegant player on one term, but then they'd say I was casual and lazy. So it did annoy me because, as you say, Buzz, I played to win. And no matter what team I was in, whether it was Bankstown, Australia, New South Wales, Essex, I always played to win. So, occasionally I would get out when I thought the job was done. That's why when I got a lot of hundreds, they weren't big hundreds, which is probably, when I look back, that's one thing I should have nailed, those big hundreds. But, every now and then I'd look a bit lazy then, but it's just the way I played. Usman Khawaja cops it as well. So does David Gower, going back a little bit. But then you get the opposite, which is Stephen, and they say he's gritty and tough and not flamboyant. I think at times he got annoyed with that. So you sort of learn to live with it. But the players you play with know exactly what sort of player you are, which is the most important thing, I think.
Well, Sir Donald Bradman described you as the most elegant player of the era, so that's a fair rap. And I often get asked is, who's the best player you ever played with? It's a hard question to answer, but Junior, I do answer that you were probably the best player I ever played with in terms of natural ability and all-round talent and tough. I mean, you don't have to talk tough and sledge and all that sort of thing to be a tough player. I mean, the classic example of what you're talking about was Stephen scored 200 in that Test match in the West Indies. What people talk about that double hundred. What year was that, Junior? 95.
Yeah.
What they don't realise, you scored 120 and did the hard yards along with him.
That's right.
In that Test, but that 100 never gets spoken about. But
Yeah.
well, it doesn't never get spoken about. But
it does a little bit. But that's sort of when Stephen got 200. It doesn't look like a huge innings, but I mean that was the best innings or our best partnership, no doubt about it, against that sort of quality of bowling. So, and I wasn't in particularly good form in that innings, but yeah, look, I mean, I played over 100 tests without missing one. So, I played through injury. Look, I don't want to sit here and say I was a tough player, but, I played to win. And, sometimes...
I can tell you, I can say, mate, you were a tough player.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah,
I mean,
so are you, Buzzard.
I think...
No, about a quarter as good as you, but I'll take that.
Well, I remember when I was about 18, I got asked to be a net bowler for the Blues. Sort of came in and obviously, you were there, Buzz and Junior, and I'm just looking up to the Junior thing far out. I'm in the same net as June, and how good's this? And I'd read in the press about how easy it came to Mark Wall, and the perception was, as we've spoken about, that he didn't really train a lot and didn't really work on it. But the one thing I took home that night, you caught balls in the slips for about 40 minutes, I reckon, and you worked on those short little nicks. You worked on the longer nicks off the quick bowl, and I thought, this guy, he works so hard and probably doesn't get the credibility or get that credit that you deserve. But I guess, Junior, away from the game, you love a punt. You're an animal lover. You married your beautiful wife, Kim, back in what I think is 2005. What's on the horizon now for Mark Wall post, I guess, cricket?
Well, I mean, I've got to keep working because I missed out on the IPL gravy train there, so I've got to keep working. Obviously, I love my work at Fox Sports. I've got some years to run on my contract there, and hopefully it gets extended. But I just love working with the guys I played with. Great bunch of guys there at Fox. So I'm looking forward to my commentating, my role there. Obviously, I live on a farm at the Central Coast, and my wife runs her horse racing business, and I'm a bit hands-on there, particularly with maintenance around the farm, and I love my horses and my racing, so that's always going to be there.
And she's a gun trainer too.
Yeah, Kim's a great trainer. She's trained Group 1 winners, so it's a pretty full-on job she's got. So I've got to sort of support her the best I can, whether it be just not financially, but it's a tough lifestyle, that one. So
what do you do? What do you do on the farm, June? What's your day to day? Are you sweeping out?
Can't see you mucking out the stables.
Are you sweeping out the stables, or what are you doing?
If we're short of workers, I can. And Kim's actually taught me how to do the stables mucking out, so I can do it if I need to. I can lead a horse if I need to. I used to be allergic to horses actually before I met Kim, and then I took a course of needles to desensitise to horses, so that's okay. But mainly just some fencing and mowing. And I didn't own a mower for 48 years of my life, and now I've got ride-on mowers, tractors, the lot. So yeah, things change. Yeah, so no, I enjoy it. Love the lifestyle. Up on the Central Coast where it's nice and peaceful. I love my golf. Haven't played much lately, but I do love my golf. Those sorts of things. And I just love sport. Actually, following sport. So that's probably my life, really.
Next week, Ashes. Firstly, from the Australian point of view. Alex Carey has been named keeper. Your thoughts on that?
Yeah, no, I like Alex Carey. I think he deserves it. He's been vice captain. He's done his apprenticeship. I think he's a really good keeper. His batting is solid. I think he averages 36 in first class cricket. So he's got a great temperament, very calm under pressure. He's an experienced player. He's played a lot of one-day cricket. I think he's going to be a good help behind the stumps with that experience, especially with Pat Cummins as captain. An inexperienced captain. So I like that selection. I think he'll do a good job. I think he's a really solid player with a good work ethic, and he thinks about the game as well. So I like that selection. The number 5 spot we don't know about yet, but it's a toss up between Khawaja and Travis Head, and I think you could go either way and you wouldn't lose much. So I'm thinking Travis Head in my eyes. He averages nearly 40 in Test match cricket. He's a bit younger than Khawaja. I think he's got a bit about him. I know his technique can be a little bit suspect outside off stump, but so can Khawaja's. I think there's not much between those guys. And, I think with his record, Khawaja's got a good record too at Test match level. But to me, I think he's more of a top order player. So I'm looking at Travis Head for the number 5 spot. But whatever way they go, it's going to be pretty much the same sort of player.
Any prediction, June, on who will win? Any numbers?
Well, I think Australia... it's not ideal preparations at losing your captain and your wicketkeeper just before the Test series in Tim Payne, which is, it's terrible bad luck and terrible news surrounding that. But I think Australia look too good. England's batting to me looks very fragile. They've got Joe Root, who averages 50. He's their only world-class player, although Stokes, in his own right, is a world-class player, but he's been out for a long time with that finger injury and mental health issues. So I see it's going to take him a bit of a while to get into his groove and rhythm. England have good bowlers, but the Kookaburra ball is not their friend, I don't think, in Australia. They're going to be threatening in certain situations at the Gabba and Adelaide under lights. But I think Australia on home soil will be too strong, and I'm looking forward to... I think Steve Smith's going to have a big summer. I think he's going to be the leading run scorer. Pat Cummins, the leading wicket taker, in Australia to win possibly about 3-1. I think that's my prediction.
3-1, okay.
They haven't won a Test for 10 years, the Poms in Australia.
Yeah, they lost 5-0 and 4-0 the last two Ashes series. We drew 2-2 in England in 2019, so I can't see that changing. I think we've still got a great bowling lineup. Got 4 world-class bowlers, and Cameron Green gives us a bit of all-round punch to it. Number 6, good young player who can bowl some good overs. So yeah, it's a good side.
Hey, Junior, we talked about your maths before. Now, if I asked you, what's the return, 160 each way at 7-2, you'd trot it out without a drama.
Yeah, nail it.
But there's certain maths you're not so good at. Let's take a listen.
73, 10 overs maximum. 8 overs. 8 overs. 8 12s are 76 when I went to school, so hang on. 8 overs.
Well, your co-host here was on the panel with you and didn't, so I'm not sure.
It's always me and you, June, for some reason.
What school did you go to, by the way, when you went to school? I think it would be sacking the maths teacher.
Went to a better school than you, Buzzer. You went to Punch Bowl. I went to East Hills Boys High.
Marginally better.
Fantastic.
But it's not
I reckon 8 12s were 96 at Punch Bowl.
Yeah, no, 76. I was 20 out. So I was trying to work out how many balls Australia would chase down the total. And I was thinking they'd score at 2 runs a ball, which is 12 and over. only chasing 70 odd. So I thought, well, that's just above 70 odd, isn't it? 8-12 to 76. But no, it was 96. So
what's 100 each way at 7-2?
well, if you don't try and be tricky, mate.
Don't try and stitch him up.
That's about a return of $350 if you had 100 on.
There you go.
There you go. See, easy.
So,
happy with Camo captain, June?
yeah, definitely. Look, I'm happy with Cummins captain and Steve Smith vice captain. I think that was a good choice. There's been a bit of talk about Steve Smith shouldn't have got the vice captaincy, but I disagree with that. I think he's done his time. You know, the mistakes he made, and it's going to be tough on Pat Cummins. Like, he's hardly captain at all. Let's not forget that. So it's not going to be easy for him. And being a fast bowler, you've got to manage your workload. You've got to try and relax in the field at some stage. When you're bowling 30 overs in the heat, it's not easy. So let's not ignore the fact that it's not going to be smooth sailing. But he's a smart cricketer, well respected, and I hope he does a great job.
Well, Spinner doing great jobs. You definitely do that, mate, with your commentary on Fox Sports. Looking forward to working with you over the summer, mate. It's been an absolute pleasure to have you on. Thank you for what you've done for not only Australian cricket, but for world cricket. You've been one of my heroes growing up, one of the most elegant players to play the game, and a phenomenal record, mate. So great to have you on, June. Thanks, mate.
Great to be on here, and great to play with you two fellas too from New South Wales. We play to win, and that's the way we enjoyed our cricket. So pleasure to be on the show.
Thanks once again, mate. Really appreciate it. There we have it, an absolute superstar of world cricket. Thanks, everyone, for listening into this episode, the first one of the Brett Lee podcast. If you like what you're hearing, feel free to leave us a review on the episode, wherever you're listening in. Mark Waugh, what a superstar. Great to have him on first. Buzz?
Yeah, what a great guest. I've been lucky enough to know Mark Waugh for longer than I care to mention. What I love about him is, many things I love about him is his brutal honesty. He'd be the guy in the dressing room when everyone's thinking something, looking down at their feet, but not get up and was game to say it. He'd get up and say it.
And he would address that elephant in the room, wouldn't he?
Yeah, brutally honest.
Great guy to work with, and obviously one of the best players to play the game. All right, that's us for now. We're back to do all again next week. We'll have a national preview, some more special guests, but until next time, Buzzard, as we say, keep your chins up.
Yeah, I'm going to go away and work on my third one. It's drooping a bit.